the three those are the three really big categories that we touch on. And yes, we touch on them in a bunch of different ways, but that's really what we're looking for in every interaction that you have in the interview process. So normally you'll start with a recruiter screen and we're looking for those things, and then you'll move on to a hiring manager behavioral interview. He or she will look for these things, and then in the technical, same thing as well. Um, we all evaluate it in a little bit of a different way, but again, that goes back to the core of what we're looking for. So here it's just more like some of them are hard skills, some of them are soft skills, but just trying to see if it really would be a match for not only us, but for you too. Like, do we think that you would be a fit here, and would you be happy to work with us? So moving forward from there, I will jump into the differences between behavioral and technical interviews before we get more into how to approach each of them. So, a behavioral interview, it is really based on the premise that past behavior predicts future performance. So, a lot of these are the questions that start with, tell me about a time when, give me an example of. We're looking for your leadership, your collaboration, your adaptability, your ability to communicate generally as well, how you talk about problems and how you would approach them. So when people are saying in a recruiter screen, oftentimes they will give you a framework of you have this round to complete it and then get to offer. When they're saying behavioral interview, that's what they're meaning, and that's what you can expect. And then technical and case study interviews are the other type of interview that you'll come across. Case study is more for if you're not jumping into a technical role like software development, data science, something like that. Case study interviews will happen if you're in marketing or finance, or if you're in some sort of like analytical role, it'll usually be a case study evaluation. But this focuses on the hard skills. So these two combine, of course, evaluate your soft skills as well as your hard skills. Technical, and I'll jump more into this later, but it can be live coding, modeling, whiteboarding. Um, Sometimes it is like a case walkthrough, but in a technical way. And I'll get into how to approach that exactly, but that's the difference between the two types of interviews you'll come across in a typical interview process. So, jumping right into behavioral interviews, the best, most tried and true way to answer questions in a behavioral interview is the STAR method. So, STAR is situation, task, action, result. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this because it is a way to answer questions as well in like essay format, or even if you're presenting at school. But what I really like to dive into explaining on this one is where students trip up a lot of times in the early stages of just starting their job search. So, what we'll see a lot happen, and I've called it out as the common trap here, is that the student will spend a ton of time giving us the backstory and the situation that they're getting into. And mind you, these interviews have a finite amount of time, and we have a definite amount of questions we'd like to get through. So usually a recruiter will kind of, or a hiring manager will kind of say, we have 4 or 5 cases we'd like to get through, or a few questions we like to get through. They'll kind of frame it like that so that you can think about how much time you're spending on the question. But what we see a lot of the time is the student then will over explain the situation to us and then have no time left to get to the action or the result. And what we actually are interviewing you for is the action and the result. And so if we're running out of time on an interview, that's the end of time. Usually people are not running over on their interviews. Sometimes hiring managers will work in a little bit of flexibility into their schedule, but most times they're jumping from your interview right into another meeting or even another interview sometimes. So to be respectful of everyone's time, we do cut it at close. And so with that being said, if you spend, 10 minutes giving us just the situation, we're gonna have to rush you through the task, action, and result to get to the next question or to wrap up the interview or whatever it may be. And so a lot of feedback I get when my managers and I are debriefing about early career individuals is that they just explain the situation. They haven't practiced talking about the actions that they specifically did is the other feedback, and then maybe never even got to the actual result. But in terms of when you do get in this, you give a quick, brief description of setting the scene. Usually, the scene that you're going to be talking about is something that the hiring manager is familiar with or has faced. They're the very experienced person in the room, so a lot of times they will have a reference point for the situation. The task, you really want to define the goal, problem, metric, or the project just very plainly and clearly. Like, we wanted to get this result, so this is what we did. Bleed right into the action. And when I say the action, I don't mean the action that everyone in your company did. I really mean the action that you specifically did. And that's really the key as well. When you use the we and us phrases in the action portion of it, it gives people the general impression that you weren't leading the charge there, or you didn't have much of an active role or a whole lot of ownership of whatever is happening there. And that gives managers an impression that you would be like that in our company. Like, you wouldn't be leading with action. You wouldn't be the one taking the ownership or mediation or leading with logic, that you would be the person that's kind of sitting back and participating. But we want somebody really active. And so we want to hear the specific actions you took in that section. And then the result, I can't stress this enough, measurable outcome. Um, Saying things like, things were better at the company is it doesn't really give us an actual tangible result to what you did. So try to think about it of the impact that your work had. What were the achievements? Did it save time? Did it save money? Was it delivered on time or ahead of schedule? Like, really talk about exact metrics that are trackable when you get into the STAR framework. So that's really going to be the key for all of your behavioral questioning. Because as I said earlier, it'll be name a time when, or tell us about a situation where. And so this is really framing how you can answer all of those really clearly and effectively, and to also keep yourself on track. Um, and with that, I kind of go into here a strong versus a weak response. So, another common pitfall is sort of like blaming the company or blaming the situation that you're in, instead of taking ownership and accountability for the situation and talking about it with a solution-oriented mindset. So here I have the example. My group project members were lazy, so I did all the work myself to get an A. While that might be true, it also implies like negative connotation and that you might be bad at collaboration. So while you think that you are probably sounding good giving a response to that, it's actually showing that you are lacking communication and mediation, and that you might not be able to communicate very effectively with others. And so instead of saying like something like that, here's an example, a very quick one of the STAR method. You'd obviously go a little bit more into depth with, again, the action and the result. But in my marketing capstone, one member was missing deadlines. I set up a one-to-one coffee chat, realized they were overwhelmed, and helped redistribute the timeline. We finished 2 days early and got a 95%. So again, that's a really small example. The questions will require a little bit more in-depth thinking on it. But if I asked you, like, name a time when you had conflict with a group, that would be a great way to answer that question. So this shows empathy. It's a very constructed result as well. It demonstrates the structure. We all know that you should be answering in the STAR method. So we will listen for that when we're evaluating how you've performed in the interview. And then it gives a tangible result. So 2 days early, and it gives your score of 95%. So that's what I mean when I say all of that. And these are kind of so when you're interviewing, these are this kind of score rubric that's happening in the background when we're evaluating you post interview. So every company has its own sort of rating system. So you'll interview, and then the interviewers will individually give feedback, blind of what anyone else has entered in the feedback section. And usually these are the sort of rubrics that you'll see you're being evaluated against. So this is kind of like an inside sneak peek on what's happening behind the scenes before you get hired. So we're looking for leadership skills, your initiative, you're guiding team members, you're coordinating projects, you might even be mentoring individuals in some cases. We are also looking for your teamwork and collaboration, so cross-functional mediation, compromise, peer support, failure and ownership. So we also want to see if you can learn from mistakes, you're transparent and accountable, and you've course corrected. And then challenge and conflict resolution. A lot of behavioral questions do focus around challenge and conflict resolution. So overcoming roadblocks, removing tight constraints, and then removing team friction as well. And then the other thing is, and I'll get into this in a second, but your proudest achievement. So the driving metrics, um, shipping a complex feature, creating something. We really want to see it is your time to brag about yourself, to be honest. And we really do want to see that without coming off too cocky, but we do really like to see you, flex the metrics that you're really proud of, or a work byproduct that you're really proud of, or even if it's a school grade or something like that that you're really proud of, as I used in that example before. That those are all things that we look for you to talk about in interviews and that we're making notes of and we're scoring you against. And with the proudest achievement, I wanted to bring up a really common question that happens in behavioral interviews that students ask about a lot, and that's tell me about yourself. Um, and so I did want to touch on that before I give a little bit more on the behavioral stuff. So the tell me about yourself question is often the first question you get asked in, for sure, a recruiting screen, and then sometimes in the hiring manager screen, and occasionally in the technical. Usually the technical is more right to the point, but the hiring manager will ask you that as well. And that is really your time to showcase what you think is important for us to know against the context of our work. So, a common pitfall with the tell me about yourself question is I get the life story of someone, which again, we do want to know you on a deeper level, but it still is a professional setting at the same time. So a good example of that just happened the other day. I was interviewing a student and he started to tell me like where he grew up and his dog's names and sports he played, and that he was in Cub Scouts when he was younger, and that impacted where he wanted to go to school. And it was like a very long story to get to the point of what we were actually there to talk about. And so while we do love to see your personality shine through, and I would never discourage you from doing that, try to do it in the most professional way possible. So it's okay to say what you're passionate about, or if you're still in school about to graduate, why you went to USC, what stood out for you. Unfortunately, I went to UCLA, but it still comes up in a lot of conversations where people ask me to tell them about me. It still is something that comes up, and I mean, it's the reason I moved to California, and I've been in California for my whole career. I moved across the country to go to UCLA, so it is part of my story. Um, And I do like to bring it up, but again, I have to tie it back to the point. I have to get to how does that get me in the room where I'm now interviewing with you. So it's still good to say, like, I went to USC and I studied marketing, and with that, I found I had a passion for X, and that is what kind of shaped projects that I worked on, or extracurriculars that I've done, or volunteering that I'm involved in, because you're still telling us about yourself, but you're framing it with the context of the audience being someone who might employ you. And so I think always practice that response. Tell your story. That's a really good time as well if you're doing some sort of pivot from maybe I can give my own example. I majored in marine biology and I worked in sales and recruiting for my whole career. Obviously, those two are not very closely coordinating with one another. So it was my opportunity, tell me about yourself, to give the story of why you would be sitting there talking to a biology grad for a sales job. It was me telling different experiences I had throughout my college career that impacted me to want to make that switch and choice. And so with that, I'm telling them where I went to school, experiences that I had, a little bit about who I am and how I think, but I'm also framing it as the time to tell them why I'm wanting to make a career pivot. So that is still part of the interview, and you definitely want to treat it as such. But that is kind of how I would navigate that question. And I know that that would have been probably the most frequently asked question with new grads, because again, it comes up in every single interview. The reason that we even ask it is because we like to see how you think and what you'd want to tell us about yourself. Because realistically, we could do, okay, what's your name? Where did you go to school? We could ask you those things granularly, but we like to see how you would approach telling your own story. So, yeah, I would say that's the key, is to keep it personal, but in with the professional context applied. And then here I also just call out the story matrix strategy. So I get this question a lot as well, where students are going to say, okay, so I have to prepare for every single possible question they could ever ask me in a behavioral setting. Like, how do I have to have all these different examples and be ready to think about them and talk through them? That's not the case. What I recommend is doing five really detailed examples. Just have them written down in STAR method, like in notes. I used to use OneNote when I was interviewing, so I would have like a whole OneNote notebook for interviewing, and each tab would be a different interview I was preparing for. But I would have pre-prepared answers for just general, anything that could be asked, like really good examples of my work, not with the context of any specific question in mind, just five examples of me doing something from start to finish that had metrics that I was really proud of, that I could speak at in depth. And I suggest every student doing the same thing, because you can shift your answer just a little bit to meet different questions, but then you're just prepared to really go into that example, and you're not on the fly thinking, oh crap, what examples do I have? Do I have an example? You have the examples written out ready, and you have ones with metrics. So you're already going to come off a lot more polished than most people in the interview pool just by doing that and being ready to talk about different things. And something else to highlight here, this is helpful because you also won't revert back to the same example over and over and over again, which is another common pitfall that happens in behavioral interviews, where I've gotten to debriefs where there's like five, six rounds of interviews for someone at a senior level, and they've only answered with the same example across all of the interviews. So we get into the debrief and everyone brings up the same example being used. And so that gives the impression, oh, so maybe they only have one example of their work. Maybe that was the only time they did all of these things. And that might not be true, but again, that gives the impression that it is, because there's no versatility in your responses. So that's why I say have five good examples ready to go. And as you move through, try to to add diversity in those responses, even if it's in some cases you'll meet with the same person twice too. So even if that is the case, like really try to hone in on different examples, give versatility. A lot of times, if we're pressed for a decision on something, the hiring manager will double down and meet the top candidates again at the end of an interview process. And being able to revert to different examples and point to different times is going to help you stand out because they'll remember and have notes on that first time and maybe even ask you more in-depth stuff about that first interview that you had with them. Um, Use that as a springboard to then bring in another example. Yes, that happened. And also at this point, I did blah, 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 blah. Um, that will really help again give versatility and really show that you're a dynamic working professional and that you can be adaptable. So I think that might be my last slide on behavioral questions. And I'll pause here because I did see some stuff in the chat. Oh, now I'm at the end. Let's see here. Let me see. How do I pull up the
That
chat?
was great information, Bree. I can definitely moderate the chat for you. So,
Okay.
a question did come in when you were giving the example of the STAR method. And the
Mhm.
question was, is it better for your response to be that short? Can you maybe talk a bit about the difference between the importance of length versus impact?
Yes. So impact is the most important thing, I would say. Um, you don't want it to be as short as my example if you can avoid it. And I will say that a lot of times a interviewer will ask questions in the middle of you answering. So if they want more information on something that you just said, they'll double down and say, "Wait, can you explain this more? What did you mean by that?" Um, or can you double click on that? What happened when this happened? So they'll also be interjecting a little bit to navigate that, but I would say don't spend a ton of time, barely any time at all, honestly, on the situation and task. I would keep those two combined to about a minute if you can. And then spend the rest of the time. I would define like 5 minutes on a question as a good amount of time, depending on the complexity, but spend the rest of the time going into the action and the result. So, 1 minute on situation task, and then maybe 3 minutes on the action and 1 minute on the result, or 2 minutes on the result. Um, because again, the action you want to spend most of your time and then say what that action implied. The result should just be, if you've got really good examples, should just be a metric. So you shouldn't have to really explain that. So that's why I'm saying the action is probably where you're going to spend most of your time. But I would say practice answering in about 5 minutes length is a healthy amount of time. And try to make sure, again, that you're condensing everything to be as impactful with your words as possible as well. Watch for yourself like running on and yeah, I think 5 minutes would be a solid and you can definitely get your impact across in that amount of time too. But I do see a lot of people spend just 5 minutes on the situation, which is why I called that out. But yeah, great question. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Bree. And yes, I do many mock interviews, and so many students kind of take the majority of the time to answer, the situation, what the issue was, and what they had to do, and then kind of glance over the action and result. And I think employers definitely want to see that action and the results. So thank you for emphasizing that. We do have a few more questions. So we have a few UCLA undergrads here. Just wanted to point
Oh,
that out.
nice. Go Bruins.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but and then we do have a question. As new grads looking for entry-level roles, is it expected that many of our potential examples are from coursework?
Um, Yes and no. So we would look at, I mean, we're getting your resume, so we know what your experience is, and ideally you're putting any experience outside of school on your resume as well. So, if you don't have a lot of work experience, then we would expect that that type of person would leverage academic experience over that. The preferable examples would be in an internship or a work setting or something like that. But again, if that's not really applicable to the role that you're going to be applying for, then I would say revert to academic settings. And in academic settings, try to focus on like smaller group projects or labs or things like that where you can really have a lot of ownership of whatever the actions are. But I would say it's 50-50 because usually a student will apply with some sort of internship or work experience that they can draw on. And then there are going to be questions that you might not have ever faced in those scenarios. So then you do want to rely on the academics a little bit.
Thank you so much for that. We do have another question regarding you and your background, because I know you mentioned you did marine biology, I believe, but it says you mentioned a bit about your background and your career area. So I'm wondering how you were able to tell your story on your degree in marine biology and how marine biology and tech in technical recruiting. As someone who also studies something that's not identifiably related to the career I hope to pursue, I'd love to know how you respond to that.
Yeah, for sure. Great question. I still get asked this question in interviews for myself, and I've been working for over a decade. So, great question. So the way that I frame it, and this is true, is my senior year, I actually did a research year through USC, and I lived on Catalina Island. And I thought that was going to be my dream and the best thing I've ever done. And I thought that was going to springboard into the rest of my life. And I hated it. So I frame it as that was my like, oh crap moment of I just did a 4-year degree in something that I could never actually see myself working in now that I've had this experience. Um, and I was like, okay, I've gotta reflect on what else I've done that I can then leverage to get a job. And the job that I was working at the time was actually for the UCLA fund. So I was working in like the call center doing sales to high paying donors. I essentially would call people that would donate more than 10 grand to the school on a regular basis and like kind of court them. Like I would take them to basketball games and I would take them to lunches and invite them to UCLA events and things like that and give more of like a white glove service. And I was really good at that job and I really loved that job and had been promoted several times in that job. And I thought, okay, maybe that's what I should pursue then. And with that, I thought, okay, how does that translate into the real world? Sales was the natural progression for that. And so my when I interviewed, my entire examples and everything that I gave in interviews was about that position and what I was doing with that work, despite all of my job experience being I worked in an aquarium. I had a year of research on Catalina. I worked in a wet lab. Those were the other jobs that I had on my resume. So nothing related to anything I was interviewed for, but I really used that tell me about yourself moment to tell my story and connect that through line. And that's what I mean why it's like I'm still telling you about myself. I'm telling you things I like and don't like. I'm telling you that I went to UCLA, what I was passionate about and what I studied, and I'm also telling you things that I didn't like and how that changed me and how I'm adaptable and I moved on to try to interview for something else, how I practice self-reflection. So those are kind of the things that we're listening for while you're still telling about yourself. I'm just not telling you like I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania and I'm not giving you those details, but I am telling you about myself while I'm giving my career, hopefully, story. So yeah, that's how I navigated that. And that's why I say kind of think about, especially if you're making a pivot of some sort, what are you passionate about? What do you like to do? Why are you thinking to make that pivot? That's what we want to hear. Because that's your moment to explain what's not on your resume. And they would not get that information anywhere else. That's not going to be on your LinkedIn. That's not going to be anywhere written that they can read, like, oh, she had this experience and didn't like it, so she did this. And I'm not going to write that anywhere. So that's my moment to tell that part of it. And that's also an endearing moment for you and the interviewer. Like they get to know you a little bit more. And they might even ask some questions about things that you said, or maybe you said something and they have it in common. And then that's already breaking the ice too. Um, but yeah, don't be afraid to say, like, I did this and I didn't like it. And so I want to do this. That's really what that question is there for. But yeah, that's a great question and it still comes up.
Amazing. I love to hear stories about how different people pivot and how they're able to kind of tell their story through that pivot. So I appreciate that. I think we can do one more question before moving on to
Yeah.
the technical portion. Sohum, I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah. Hi, thank you there. How would you, this failures and ownership, how would you like, I'm trying to rack my brain on some failures I have. Um, I have some examples. Like one example I do have is, I talk about it during my undergrad. I took a biz law class
Mhm.
and I struggled immensely with it. So what I say during these interviews is during that time, I say that I struggled with it because of the challenges and I had to drop out. But I was able to retake the class. So how would you polish that up during the interview process? Like, is that a good answer to go um or should I look for another answer?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I personally probably wouldn't use that as an example, but there is a way to frame it and use that example if that's the best example that you can think of. Um, but failure, essentially, we are looking for you not to be afraid that things didn't go perfectly. I don't think, ever been a case where I've worked on a project and everything has gone perfect from start to finish. And so we want you to not be afraid to recognize that in the interview process. And so failure, if someone's asking you about failure, you just want to make sure you can frame the recovery from the failure really well. So, again, that this is all a case of like where you spend your time in answering the question. So if somebody asked you like, what was your greatest failure and what did you learn from it? You really want to hone in on the what did I learn from it? Really minimize what the failure was and say, but I did this and this and this, and it helped me do X, Y, and Z. So you can still use this example and say, like, I really struggled with this one course that I took, and I felt it wasn't positively benefiting my university experience. And so I took a step back and I chose to withdraw myself. What that allowed me to do was open up to something else, insert whatever else you did after that. And once I was in a better state, I then was able to retake the class and get an A or something like that. So it's about really just about how you say it more than anything. If you make it sound like a negative, even if the words coming out of your mouth aren't negative, it will give a negative connotation. So you really want to be talking about it in a positive light and sound like not enthusiastic, but like not like that ruined your life, if that makes sense. Like you don't want to sound sad about how you failed or whatever. You want to really hone in on the ownership and moving forward. So if you did want to use that example, like I said, I would finish up with giving some sort of metric or positive outcome. And just really minimizing like how much time you spend on talking about the failure, if that makes sense. Okay, so I think we're ready to now jump into technical interviewing. So, technical interviewing, these are the different kinds of technical interviews that you'll come across in your career. And whiteboarding and logic, live coding, paired programming, or take-home assignments are probably the biggest categories that you'll face. And again, these are all different depending on what you're interviewing for. Um, whiteboarding and logic is a little bit less common now that there aren't as many in-person interviews that happen. That used to be a really big in-person tactic. It's still big if you're interviewing for a job that's in person. But like in my case, Ancestry, we're a remote first company, so we would do the live coding or paired programming for a lot of the technical stuff. And then take-home assessments are the other one. This also depends a lot on the role in the company. Some companies love a take-home assessment. Others are really against take-home assessments, but I would say you'll at least encounter it once in your timeline to interview to get a job, so it's worth mentioning. The secret to any of these interviews really is giving your logic and communicating while you're answering the question. So a lot of people harp on getting the answer 100% correct. And actually, that really doesn't matter a whole lot. Now, if you don't know how to do the thing at all, that matters. But it does not matter if you get the answer correct. Most of the time, we're expecting you to get it wrong because we're usually asking you a question that's really highly applicable to our specific business. And you wouldn't know that as a new grad, what we do in our business and our day to day, or the specific problems that we'll face that are nuanced to our product. And so we just want to see how you approach the problem. We want to see that you have good problem solving skills and good communication skills while you're solving the problem. Like, yes, if it's a live code and you're using Python, we want to see that you're able to produce something in Python. But if that something isn't the exact right answer, that's okay. We want to see how you talk through it. And then if you're getting snagged on something, what is it? Do you communicate that? Do you ask more questions to clarify? So that's the key to technical. And I'm going to get into a little bit more of, thinking out loud here, but just keep that in mind that that's the scene that I'm setting everything with. So the first stage of it is clarifying the prompt. Um, it's really a red flag when someone just immediately starts to code or starts to answer the question or just starts writing or typing or whatever it may be. When you're asked a question, you want to echo the question back to the asker first to make sure that you've clarified exactly what the prompt is and what you're solving, because you don't want to find yourself coding for 15 minutes and you never got the prompt correct. And so the interviewer will then say, okay, yeah, that looks great if you were answering the right question, but you're not. So clarifying the prompt is huge and often missed by new grads because they get excited when they know the answer and they just want to start answering. So definitely like take a breath, take a step back, clarify what is the problem. Then state your assumptions. I have a little example after this of something how to get into this, but you want to say, okay, these are all the variables that we're assuming when you're asking that prompt. So those two things just to set the scene, and then outline how you're going to approach it as well before you start approaching it, because most times if it's really incorrect, they'll clarify. They'll add something in that hopefully will steer you in the correct direction. And again, it's okay to not be correct, but we want to give you your best shot in answering the question correctly. So if you're saying, I would do X, Y, and Z, and that's 0% on the right track, they'll normally say, you might want to consider this in your response, and then that will help guide you get to the right answer. And then narrate step by step while you're doing the thing. So say, I'm next going to do this because the because is really important. It shows how the wheels are turning in your head, why you're taking action after the action. If you don't say anything at all and the answer is wrong, we just assume that you actually didn't know what to do. And that might not be the case. So communicating throughout the whole thing. And it also would feel very awkward as well if you're not speaking at all when you're live coding. That does happen. And that also can be a negative on the culture fit discussion that I brought up, that everybody is still evaluating that. Even if it's a technical interview, they're still trying to see if you would be a culture fit for the company. And if you're just silent, they're a really big collaborative team, that might show that you might not be a culture fit because you don't communicate well. So something to keep in mind as well. And basically what we're looking for here, the technical interview enables your course correction. So again, sometimes they'll add commentary while you're doing it to kind of steer you, and they want to see how you're able to recover from if you made a mistake or something like that, how you walk things back, how you approach moving forward. And then it, of course, also is measuring your rigor with whatever technology or tool or whatever it might be that we're using. Um, and then, yeah, silence. If you go silent for over 60 seconds, you're losing points. Um, that's just awkward for everybody. So try not to go too silent on your interviews, even if you are focused on the task at hand. But that's the think out loud logic framework behind answering the technical questions. And then here it's just a quick walkthrough. So this is a silly problem that I think came from a Google interview that they were doing for engineers a few years back. How many golf balls fit in a standard school bus was the question. And again, these kind of questions are really common with early careers because we know that you don't have a whole lot of experience in a corporate setting answering the type of questions that I would ask like a principal level software engineer, because they will have the backing and work experience of doing it in real time and doing it probably for multiple companies. So I would expect them to know a problem that's ancestry specific and be able to apply their knowledge to answer that. We know that you might not always have that historical context. So we'll ask a question that's like a math or a logic question a lot in a technical interview. So here is the steps 1 and 2, the scoping, so clarifying the question and the assumptions. So are we assuming seats are left inside the bus or is it completely hollowed out? I'll assume standard seats remain. Again, pause. They'll say, oh, actually, the bus is hollowed out, or something like that to really clarify the prompt. And then that also shows that you're thinking critically about, okay, what are all the scenarios of everything before I calculate this? I need to have the right mind frame before I can move forward. And then assumptions stated out loud. Okay, standard 40-foot school bus, approximate dimensions, the standard size of a golf ball. The seats and fixtures occupy roughly 20% of the total interior. So, yes, these are all of the assumptions. They're going to say, yes, it's a standard school bus. Yes, we're using a regular golf ball. Usually they will give you dimensions and numbers to calculate in a case like this, so you wouldn't have to know the school bus is 40 feet off the top of your head, but it's good to clarify those things. Okay, so this is the size, this is that. And then your logic. So, okay, with that, I'm going to use the formula of the balls equals the bus volume times zero point 0.8 divided by the ball volume, and say it in this way. So first I'll calculate the bus volume in inches. 480 inches times 96 inches times 72 inches equals about 3.3 meters. And then dropping 20% for seats leaves 2.6. Dividing ball volume gives us roughly 1 million golf balls. And so that shows how you're thinking about it, why you put certain numbers, and how that logic applies. Because if you just start, spewing out numbers off the top of your head, people are going to be really confused with how you're getting from point A to point B. Or the other scenario is where people go silent and they're either writing or they're calculating, whatever it may be, and then they say 1 million golf balls, and maybe the answer is 15 million, but they didn't explain how they got to that 1 million and they gave no context. And so everybody's kind of confused. And as the interviewer, you don't know what questions to ask to see how they got that because they've given you no context either. So, again, silly example, but that is the clearest way to illustrate like how you should move through a technical interview. And same applies if it's a case study as well. You would frame it the exact same way. And then communication and pivoting strategy. I always bring this up because Again, we don't expect you to be perfect. You're probably really nervous. If you're on an interview, everybody's going to be nervous. So getting stuck is normal. And here it says we are trying to give you a challenge. Like we don't expect the questions you're answering to be a cakewalk. If they were super easy, that wouldn't be a bar for how we could find the best candidate. So we're comparing you against several other people as well as against the job description. And so they are intended to be a kind of a stressful situation. Like we are really trying to test how you think and how quick you are on your feet. So getting stuck, completely normal, and that shouldn't be something that really throws you off your game. Like everyone's been stuck. Everyone will get stuck. It's a normal part of the interview process. But like I said before, silence is fatal. The freezing, going completely silent, nonverbal, is not a good look at any part of the interview. So if you are getting stuck, ask questions. Here I write, treat them as a teammate. Communicate. These people are interviewing you because they will be your coworkers. So treat them like that. Ask them questions if you have questions. Ask whatever you need or verbalize whatever you need to get from where you're stuck to where you need to be. We are treating it as almost a scenario of what it would be like to work with you. So if we're trying to work with you and you're not communicating at all, that doesn't speak well on how you'd be as a teammate or collaborating as a team with us. So the pivot and ask script, I'm currently a bit stuck on evaluating this variable. My initial thought is to try X, but I'm also considering Y. Do you have a hint in the direction I should explore? Again, showing that you're thinking about it in a couple different ways. You are stuck, but you're not just saying, hey, I'm stuck. It shows that you're looking to take what you're stuck on and still move forward, and that you just need a little bit of clarification to get there. And yeah, so it shows you're collaborative, it shows different logic options, and it shows a high level of self-awareness, which is also something I mentioned in the beginning that everybody is evaluating you on to a degree. So, it's always just really important to keep communicating. And then I end all of my interviews with, do you have any questions for me? And I would say most people do. So the hiring manager will ask this, the technical interviewers will ask it as well. Your recruiter is going to keep asking you this throughout the whole process. Always have an answer. The worst look is when you say, no, I don't have any questions. Even if that recruiter or the hiring manager asked all the questions you came into the call with, you can ask something. There's something about the company or something about their product or something about the team that you could find to ask. It just, a lot of, I can speak well to Ancestry on this. A lot of our interview rubrics are aimed around your curiosity. It's one of our core values at our company, and it is for a lot of the other big tech companies. And that is a huge mark against interviewees when they don't ask any questions because it shows you lack a core component of our DNA, which is curiosity. So, the final 5 minutes of an interview are your chance to evaluate your employer. I always say, even though this is a weird way to put it, it is kind of like dating when you're interviewing. You have to like the person as much as they like you. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever been in a relationship where it was one-sided. I have. But that's what it feels like when they're asking you all these questions, you're answering them, but then you don't ask anything back. You don't get any information for them. You just want them to want you, but you're not, showing that you are of value and that like you're evaluating them as much as they're looking at you. Like you realistically in the job market right now, people are staying 5 to 7 years in jobs. It used to be a 2 to 3 year gap, but it's increased a lot with the way the market is right now. So 5 years of your life is a long time. You want to work somewhere that you're really happy. You're spending all of your days at this company. You're spending 9 to 5 at least, Monday through Friday, with these people at this place doing this job for the next 5 years of your life. You have to love it. You have to be happy there. We want you to be happy here too. We also don't want a bunch of employees that hate working somewhere. So, and that energy is infectious. You can tell when people really like what they do and the job that they're in. And so we want that for you. I want every single person on this call to be in a job that they really love and be happy at work every day. So part of that is asking questions to make sure that place is the right fit for you, your culture, your needs, your wants, even. So I have some things to ask and not to ask in this section of it. So honestly, at any point, but especially in round one, asking salary, benefits, PTO, locations, um, keep those conversations to your recruiter only, and progress them, I would say, towards offer stages. Like if you lead in that first call with salary, we think that you're just money motivated and that you're not interested in the job, you're interested in the highest paying job. Which does happen. There's a lot of people that look for jobs like that, but it's not the best look to be your first impression. And then prepare 3 to 4 custom questions. So team trajectory, corporate product launches, showcase your research in this as well. I love when students come to the table with a question that incorporates our product or our mission or something that they would have found by doing research on Ancestry, versus just like, what's the career ladder? Well, our career ladder is on our career site. So if you'd done your homework, you could find that component and then ask me a question about something you've seen within the career ladder, which shows that you're interested in career progression, but you've also researched us enough to know that that is accessible and that you're wanting to build on the information that was provided. So, here's polished question templates. I saw on the company's engineering blog that you recently launched the X product. How will this a specific early career team support or iterate on that initiative? So then I know you went to our site, you saw our product launches, you've done your homework on us. Or what's the single biggest technical challenge the team is working through this quarter, and how can the incoming hire help accelerate its resolution? Again, that's thinking specifically to that company and talking about that challenge and putting yourself in the shoes of, okay, this might be a challenge that I'm going to face. How would I face it? Opens dialogue for that. And again, it just shows another level of interest in the company versus asking a really generic question or asking about PTO or something like that. So that's the type of things I advise. Again, I always had sort of a notebook going, a OneNote on Microsoft, and I would have like these types of questions ready to go. I probably had like 30 different ones prepared that I would tailor to whatever situation I'm in. Realistically, a good interviewer is going to answer a lot of your questions, so you want to have more than you would think prepared to ask them back. Because like for example, in my seat, I probably answer everyone's 10, 15 most commonly asked questions while I'm talking. So if you only had those questions, you will find yourself like nervous and stuck at the end. So it's always good to have more detailed and thought out questions prepared beyond just the general, like what's the timeline? How do you make decisions? What is the career ladder that we always get? And then a debrief best practices here. This is again just to summarize some of the hot points that I talked about. But the we versus I trap should be a key takeaway for everyone when you're interviewing. Really focus on framing things around what you specifically resolved, I managed, I programmed, I mediated. And then the 3-second pause rule. So rushing into answers is also a pitfall where you just start spewing out information. You don't take that breath to think and respond. And it also helps with your nerves too. Like someone asks a question and then you begin talking. It's the best way to get yourself ready to answer the question and just have a second to think of the example you're about to talk about, and how you're going to take it from point A to point B. So always just take a quick little pause between that and then iterating the question back, and it makes you seem more calm and sort of collected when you're interviewing as well. But those are, I think, two of the big takeaways that I'd want you to have when you move forward, no matter what interview context it is. And then I've listed some resources. MJ can also be a point of contact for you in the Career Center, but I've also included my QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, I work in the early career space and I'm working with students all the time. So if you ever need a resume review or you have a question about how you should ask a question or answer a question or anything like that, I'm always happy to be a resource for you also. If you message me, just mention that you attended the session so I know the context. But yeah, happy to connect with all of you. And I really thank you for your time and attention today. I know I'm right at time. So if there are questions, and you message me, I can try to get to answer them. I don't know if we have any time for them to stay on for questions, but I really appreciate everyone's time and I thank you for your attendance today.
Thank you so much, Brie. It was so insightful. If you're here, a reminder, we do allow mock interviews. We have appointments for
At
those.
this time, please transition back to the main room to go into the next session. Thank you.
Awesome. And we are right on time. So please, on the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see leave room. Go ahead and leave room and go into the main breakout room so that we can go on to our next portion, which I believe is lunch. Yay. See you all there. Thank you so much, Brie.
Thank you.
All righty. So how was the second session? Can we get like a round of like reactions or in the chat, like how enjoyable it was, whether you attended the sound negotiation or the interviewing session, just to get a feel for the room. Awesome. Seeing a lot of reactions. Thank you. Very celebratory. Thumbs up. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, cool. So we're gonna transition into lunchtime now. Yay! So it's been a long morning. We understand that these sessions can feel a little longer, but they're very insightful. So we appreciate your attendance to stick around for this morning. But you get to have a little break, get a little lunchtime, get your steps in, go outside or eat a good meal for about 30 minutes. So one thing I like to say is that in preparation for the next session, which is our connections that count networking sessions with about 8 of our guest panelists, and we're going to have Career Center staff there as well. In preparation, we created conversation starters, a document of all questions that you can use in your time of networking with the guest panelists. If you're just there and you're like, what do I even ask? What do I say? This is a great document just listing about different questions that you can engage conversation with them. And of course, with other peers also engaging with our guest speakers, also just as important to listen in. But another thing that can benefit you in terms of which breakout room you want to visit or talk to in terms of our guest panelists, we included their biographies as well in this tiny URL. So feel free to take a look at that during lunch or even just right when you hop on at 12:25 or even during. So then you have a little bit of a sense of who is going to be in our networking sessions and you're not just going in and say, who is this, right? But they're going to have a get to know me slide or who am I slide as well in their breakout session and how you can further connect with them more. So at this time, feel free to step away from your computer, or if you want to log back in a little bit later, please feel free to do so. But we still encourage you to come into a networking session because it is very, very important to build those connections, especially here at USC, so then you can access what MJ is calling the hidden job market. So at this time, feel free to step away and have a good lunch. And we'll stick around if anyone has any questions during this time. But we'll see you in 30 minutes.
Hi, quick question. First of all, Julia, thank you so much for helping me get in. I was the one that emailed you earlier, and so this has been very helpful. I was in the LinkedIn, and my exact questions were answered about how to update my LinkedIn. I understand that you guys have mock interviews, and I'm wondering how I can take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I'm so happy that you found your way into the meeting because I did receive a couple and then I didn't receive updates whether it worked or not. So thank you so much for contacting me and I'm glad I got back to you about that. But great question about mock interview. So If you have access to your Handshake profile, you can always book an appointment with us through Handshake under the career, about 30 minutes. So you meet with me or MJ or other career advisors that can sit down with you for 30 minutes. And essentially, what could be very helpful is that you provide your job description and what you want to currently practice interviewing for, or you have an interview coming up. And then we essentially go back and forth, ask some questions, provide some feedback, and then we debrief about what went well and what areas of improvement we can start incorporating. But it's been very, very helpful for students to come in for mock interviews. One, because you can practice, it doesn't feel like it's the real thing just yet, but also you're getting valuable feedback from a humanistic perspective.
And do you need that bio beforehand, or do I give that to you at the interview?
In terms of the job description?
Yeah, in terms of the job description or in terms of the goals of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely recommend sending the job description or even including the job description link in the description of why you're booking the appointment. They'll give you an option for that. Plus, also having an updated resume. That way, we can cross-reference one, your experience, but also what you're technically interviewing for, so we can identify any transferable skills or relevant experience. And that way, our feedback can be very tailored to you.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Well, I'm going to try to set and generally, what are your best days? Like, are Fridays good or Mondays?
I would say all of our career advisors have various appointment times.
Okay.
So we're here Monday through Friday. Some of us are more booked in the morning or in the afternoon, just depending on what our schedule is. I know for me, mine's usually in the morning around starting 10 to at least 12:30 or 1 p.m. But some advisors also have availability in the afternoon. So it's just a matter of going on Handshake and checking that. If you're looking to specifically book for a specific career advisor, then you can filter it out on Handshake, and then it'll show you the days and times that are available on there.
Okay, thank you so much and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you so much for being here and enjoy your lunch as well. Hope you can come back and join for a networking session.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. Did you have a question?
No, because I just signed in, so I'm not sure where we are and what's going on.
Oh, yes, no problem. It's funny enough, I just stopped sharing my screen, but we're just in lunchtime right now until 12:30 when we're about to transition to our networking session. So right now students are just taking a break. So yeah, feel free to just kind of sit back a bit. And then I've dropped in the chat earlier in terms of our speaker bios and networking conversation starters. So I'm gonna put it in the chat again for you. And feel free to take a look at that in the meantime. But if you have any other
Okay.
questions, please let me know as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank
All
you.
right.
Yes, Ladorius?
I have a question, another question.
Yeah, of course.
I went on your LinkedIn and I love it. I
Thank you.
love it. Well, see,
Thank
I
you.
went into the LinkedIn breakout room at first.
Uh-huh.
So I have LinkedIn on my mind.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's still a work in progress right now, but I feel like it's confident enough to stand on its own right now until I make any other changes. But I appreciate you looking me up. Connect with me. I'd love to connect with
Yeah.
you, and
Well,
we can always chat more.
unlike yourself, I'm hopping on one leg on my LinkedIn.
Oh.
So, so
Hey.
my question to you is,
Uh-huh.
um, where did you get this background picture?
In terms of my header background?
Yes. Oh, it's called a header. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, so I essentially made it on Canva. So if you ever used Canva before, they have templates
Yes.
available for like posters, flyers, right? Yes. So I just looked up LinkedIn banner or LinkedIn header, and it gave me the template already. So you just essentially choose whichever template you like, which I think what I remember mine was like a computer and a desk because it looked very
Yeah, with a cup of
nice and
coffee.
professional. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
then I just put in my information like my name, some values I hold for myself or my identities and my contact information. And it's pretty straightforward. And once you download it, you can just upload it into the header right away.
And then another thing, and then I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm gonna let you go.
Oh, no worries. I'm here all
Oh,
day. So
and then I saw that you have certification in-person virtual appointments. That's handshake. And then career champion certificate.
hmm Yes, I do. Did you have questions about that or you just
Like, how do you acquire that?
The handshake one was done through just my position here, to just get the training I need to use Handshake. There's
Mhm.
a place called Handshake Academy, that where I completed those trainings and received those certificates. So let me see if I can pull it up for you. And then for the Career Champions one, I received that in 2024, no, 2025.
25
25,
in
yes.
June.
There you go. You gotta let me know because these things I kind of messed up. But that was a program, yes, back in 2025 when I wasn't affiliated with the center yet, but I completed it as a staff member for another department at USC. They're thinking about bringing it back sometime this year or next year. But currently right now we don't have the career
Hmm.
champions training just yet. We're launching it a little bit later.
Wes put something. Thank you, Wes.
Yes, thank you, Wes, for sending that over.
All right. Okay. Okay, I'm done for now.
Okay, no worries. Hey, whatever questions you have, I'm here until basically the end of boot camp. So please let me know.
If you need to step away for 5 minutes, I can cover.
Oh, okay. Sure. Let me turn off my camera and I'll step away for like 5 minutes. Thank you, Wes.
Mhm.
Hi.
Hello, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I just checked in. So I got the things in the chat and
Uh-huh.
I opened them up so that I can look at them. I signed in, all of those good things. So I kind of just want to know how this works with the resumes, or am I a different session? or
So our remaining session's going to be a networking chat. We'll
okay,
have the prior sessions. If you weren't able to attend earlier, we recorded them and we typically just post to our YouTube channel. You can just search USC Career Center on YouTube. So
okay,
it might take us a few days to get that uploaded and shared, but typically what we'll do is we'll send out an email to all attendees
okay.
with the recordings.
And your name is?
I'm Wes. I'm the Assistant Director of
Hi,
Career
Wes. Hi,
Education.
I'm Demetrius.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so I'm just looking forward to the rest of the session.
Yep. So we'll
And
we'll resume in about like 13 to 15 minutes and
yeah,
right in this very room.
okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. I see some folks are starting to join us. I will give it a minute or so before I get into our next session, just to have some more folks join us. Some people logged off and are logging back in, so I'll give it a minute or so. Welcome back. All right, welcome back, everyone. Yes, I hope you all had a chance to enjoy lunch and really recharge. We are so excited to kick off our final session of the day, Connections That Count. This is where you'll be able to network, to do coffee chats and informational interviews. The session is all about really building meaningful professional relationships and really learning how to create opportunities through networking. So before we begin, I'd like to review a few guidelines to help ensure a positive and engaging experience for everyone. So firstly, please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. If possible, turn on your camera in order to help foster engagement and create a stronger sense of community. We also really encourage everyone to minimize distractions and really give your full attention to our guest panelists who have generously volunteered their time and their expertise to be here with us today. As always, please use respectful and professional language, and both verbal interactions is also in the chat. We want to be a welcoming and supportive environment for everyone. We really encourage you to participate actively throughout the session. Feel free to engage through polls, reactions, chat discussions, Q&A opportunities. If you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to submit them to the chat or unmute yourselves. Most importantly, just take advantage of this opportunity. Networking really is one of the most effective ways to learn about opportunities, to really gain career insights and access the hidden job market, as I keep saying. So the conversations that you start today really could lead to future referrals and internships, job opportunities, or just great professional relationships overall. So after session 3 concludes, please remember to return to the main room for our closing remarks. And we look forward to wrapping up the day together. I hope you all enjoy this next section. The breakout rooms should be open and available to all of our guest panelists that will be available, and Julie will introduce the guest panelists now.
Awesome. Thank you, MJ. So we are so excited for our guest panelists today to come join us in our session today for networking at the boot camp. I can introduce Isaac, who is a people and talent management executive and author. So amazing person. We also have Bree, who is the head of global careers at Ancestry. So if you don't know if that rings a bell, Ancestry DNA. So she's a great person to connect with. And as I mentioned earlier, for those who are in the salary negotiation session, Cole is coming back. So if you want to still continue connecting with him, asking questions about either recruitment or even salary negotiation or anything along the lines of that, he's a great person to talk to. He's a recruitment manager here at USC. And those who are graduating or have already graduated, so congrats on your graduation. We have Simone Jackson, who is the Director of Alumni Career Engagement here at USC. So if you're looking to find out other resources as an alumni or just want to engage on how you can still be connected to USC after graduation, she's a great person to talk to as well. We also have Erica Bickford. She's a Y&AB customer support person. So if no one knows what that is, YNAB is essentially a financial wellness app. So again, we have a lot of conversations about financial wellness, especially being here at USC or even just being a student itself. Great person to connect to, especially if you want to utilize that resource. I believe there is a great deal when it comes to college students, which you could further connect with her about. Next, we have Adriana Serrano Gutierrez, who is Associate Director here at USC for the Mission Center. So as you know, for a career development boot camp, we know a lot of students are looking for full-time roles or internships, but Some of those who are graduating are thinking about even pursuing more education. This is a great person to talk to, especially if you're looking to want to continue your studies here at USC in graduate school or doctoral programs, or even just wanting to gain more insight about what that looks like. And then we have Erica Castillos, who is a vice president community manager at JP Morgan Chase. Also a great person to connect to about financial wellness. But anyone that is looking to want to go into JP Morgan Chase or the corporate world itself, she's a great person to talk to. Lastly, we have Megan, who's the director of internships and special programs here at USC School of Dramatic Arts. So if you're coming from a creative background, creative field, this is a great person to connect with, especially if you're searching for anything in longs of maybe acting, screenwriting, or maybe just wanting to jump into your next role to make yourself notable. She's a great person to connect with as well. So I want to say thank you so much for our guest panelists to be here to connect with our students. And at this time, feel free to join in your assigned breakout rooms, and then we're gonna kick it off right after. And then right after, oh, sorry, we're gonna also introduce our Career Center staff is also gonna be resourceful for us. So I'm gonna pass it along to MJ.
Thank you, Julia. Yes, so we do have our Career Center staff here as well in different breakout rooms for you to ask any questions for any Career Center resources or quick advising questions. We have Lori Shreve Blake, our Senior Director. We have Stephanie Galindo, Associate Director, and Kira, who is a career advisor at the USC Career Center. For any on-campus recruiting questions or opportunities regarding any events or on-campus recruiting, you can join Rachel Chung and Jaden Wood, who are part of the employer engagement team. And then for any internship search questions, any tips or advice that you might have, you can join Liz, who is the internship programs advisor. All of the breakout rooms should be available for you to join. So please feel free to go and join, make those meaningful conversations, make those meaningful connections. You do not have to stay in one breakout room the entire hour. Feel free to pop in and out. If you want to or feel comfortable asking for LinkedIn so that you can keep connected, please feel free to do so. Utilize this time to your advantage. And we do have some networking conversation starters and the biographies in the chat if you are interested. But as of now, you are free to join the breakout room. Also, I will remain in this room. So if any of you have any questions about how to join the breakout rooms or any questions at all, I will be here. Feel free to unmute yourself or write it in the chat.
Okay. Where do I join the breakout rooms?
Sure. So in the bottom, you're going to see the icon that says breakout rooms. Once you click it, you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom and you're going to see the names of all the panelists and the Career Center staff. Feel free to join any of those. It's a blue button that says join.
So maybe I should pull up more. So, okay. Join breakout. Got it. So I should join right now?
Yes, feel free to join any of the panelists or Career Center staff using the blue button that says join.
Okay, I'm familiar with Kira.
Awesome. Yeah, she's great.
I don't see her.
She will be under Career Center resources and quick advising questions.
And she's under resources, internship search. I don't.
She's going, if you clicked on breakout rooms and you scroll to the bottom, you're going to see Career Center resources and quick advising questions.
Got it.
She's in that room. Go ahead and join that room.
Join. Thank you.
Of course.
MJ, I'm gonna pop into some of the breakout rooms, okay?
Sure.
All right, see you.
Any participants that are still in this main session, you can join any breakout room to join and ask any questions and network to the panelists or Career Center staff. Feel free to join those breakout rooms now. Hi, if you're in the session, feel free to join any of the breakout rooms. Right now, we are doing the session 3, which is networking and coffee chat. So feel free to join and network.
Yeah, I just joined one, so I came out to join another one.
Amazing. Yes, get the most out of it. Join as many as
Thank,
you can. Have
yes,
fun.
thank you.
Of course.
How's it going in here?
Going good. Students popping in and out to join different breakout rooms. So it's good. I'm gonna join some breakout rooms if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Experience. Oh, as though it was work experience. So, um, just make sure that you're putting publications, labs, projects, TAing, anything like that on if you have that experience, because at the PhD level, we realistically don't expect you to have had a job also while doing your PhD. And so it's really helpful to just have that context.
The alumni, which you are,
Okay.
but we just
Okay.
got to process you. It takes our team a little time to get your alumni ID, but once you have that, you'll be set. Okay, so that's probably why you ran into a few hurdles.
So I guess there's two different versions of it. One's for the
Mhm.
students and one's for the alumni. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Okay. So I
Exactly.
was on
Yeah.
the student one.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a good question, right? Because you all are transitioning out of what has been I am a student, and we have a plethora of resources available for our students. But you will get older. You will grow in your career. And the things that we provide our students will no longer really work for you. And that's why we have some of our own things over here at the Alumni Association. So if I were to give it a comparison, you have access to Handshake as an alum, and it's great. And it's mostly for entry level, kind of like even some mid-tier level roles. But what we offer at the Alumni Association is Fight Online. Okay. So Fight Online is like kind of our handshake. There are no jobs on there just yet. That's why I wanted to show you guys LinkedIn, but there are a lot of private communities. Everybody has a dashboard that they can look people up on. So you can literally search people's name. If you find them on LinkedIn, you can find them privately here on Fight Online, which is great. You can join those communities, like I was talking about, based on industry or where you live, or even where you plan to live. So if you want to move to Chicago this summer, maybe you want to reach out to folks in Chicago before you get there to see how the job market is doing. And what's really cool is, to your point, we just added mentorship. So if you are interested in connecting with an alum and you want to be mentored by them, you are welcome to go into Fight Online and share what you need help with, and or you're welcome to mentor others if you feel like you are the type of person that wants to do that. So it's all there, upcoming events and direct messaging to each other. So it's really helpful. We have a couple of FAQs. How do I access it? How do I get my username? How do I get my password? And a whole FAQ page. I will drop in the chat this particular page so that you all have it. Any questions? Because I know we've gone through a lot of different things, so I've been trying to pace it so it doesn't feel overwhelming, but here's the link. What are some questions you all have about how to tap into the Trojan Network? You see the resources that are available, but is there a block there on how to actually tap in?
Well, I can ask the question.
Sweet.
As far as the boards, I know I heard like you apply and then you're assigned to a board. So what does that look like? If I'm interested in like entertainment or the Black Alumni Association or it's like the young, I
Uh-huh.
guess, alumni association.
Uh-huh.
How does that work?
Great.
There you are. Hi, MJ. Great job
I know,
taking
truly.
over Isaac's slides. Oh, you slayed.
Oh, thank you so much. It was good. I'm glad I was able to just jump in because it was like, okay, 5 minutes have passed and this is a short session, and it was a lot of students in there. The majority of the students were in the session. So yeah, it was a lot.
So that's a pro tip. Always get the slides of the people. So if they don't show, you can at least run through them. That's a pro tip.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
So it's good you all had him and you weren't waiting on him to share his screen or something.
Yeah,
Great.
I pulled them up and I said, you know what, let's just go. It's funny
Yeah.
because it kind of worked out good because his slides were extremely minimal, where he had like one bullet point. I'm guessing he was just going to speak the entire time, but it kind of made me, or allowed me to kind of navigate it in my own way. So it was good. I think it worked out well.
Good. Yay.
Lori, I was actually going to ask you if you don't mind joining Erica Brickford.
Oh, happy to, because we have a lot of great talent here.
Yes.
Yes,
Erica
I will join.
Brickford, she might, some students are kind of popping in and out, but for the most part, I think
Kind of by herself.
yes.
Okay. I'm looking for her now. Okay, I will join.
Thank you, Lori.
All right.
All right, yeah, I'm popping in and out, so I'll see you soon.
Okay, see you.
Good.
Sleep. Okay. I would definitely connect with, I would ask permission from the people you know first to do an intro, because it's truly, truly true. Your connections know someone where you want to be. So definitely start there. If you after that, if it's exhausted, no one's there, etc., then I think, I mean, the USC name is huge. I don't know if you saw my session before. Then you have to kind of go doing your own research in terms of those companies, in terms of those people, like from a LinkedIn perspective, who are those people, who's making those decisions within that company, and then honestly go find their email, their company email address, and start sending personal notes, connections to those individuals. It's the in this market and with AI and just how fast things are moving, the people who are uncomfortable who are uncomfortable just staying in the
There's a reason, like within the College of Ed, there was a shift where it used to be only like in-person degrees, and they've kind of made that a little bit more flexible, for equitable purposes. But in terms of like the work requirement, and you have to fulfill, a certain number of like practicum or internship hours to meet the requirements of a degree, when we know it's not always practical because you have to carry, uh, an external full-time job if it be. I think the best way to advocate would be for current students, it would be through like the graduate student government, undergraduate student government.
Okay.
For us as professionals that are kind of, again, we're more, we have faculty, we have staff, and then we have like, admins.
So I understand that.
For,
I
for
understand.
staff, we advocate there's a couple different venues. One, there's in this instance, there's like an internship committee where we have some of our leadership team that meets with um, some of the people that have a little bit more say. So I think that's something, if you ever have any concerns, you just as you brought up today, or you can always email like our central email address, or we can give you our contact information.
Please,
And,
please do that. Because
yeah.
what you just said to me helped me. I didn't know they had an internship committee.
Yeah, so I mean, we have conversations, whether it be with employers or, with, faculty, staff, administrators on campus, and just making sure that, these situations are transparent, and, making sure you're heard.
Okay, I appreciate your response.
Mhm.
It's very important, and I'm not only thinking about me. I'm thinking about all students for internships. We have to work, and not all of us live at home, live on campus, or live with our parents. We have responsibility, house notes, rent, etc. And I thank you for listening to me and pointing me in the right direction, because that is what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
You
no
know,
problem. I think the same issue applies with unpaid versus paid internships. Not everybody has the luxury of taking on unpaid work, right? Because
right.
we're in a very high cost of living city. So
Thank you so much.
mhm,
Thank you everybody for listening.
no problem.
I'm headed to another breakout room.
Take advantage of it, network.
Yes, Cole left because he has a 1 p.m. meeting.
Trying to join. Well, okay, so
I'm going to rename his room.
Okay.
okay, yes, I'm joining.
We could turn off the recording since we're not intended to record the networking session. MJ, are you the one recording or is it?